I've been investing for over 15 years. And if I had a time machine where I could go back and just learn one lesson that would help me be a better investor from the get go, this would be it. It's all about the 5 moats that print money. And what is a moat? Well, a moat is a sustainable competitive advantage, but just telling you that doesn't really tell the whole story. So I like turning it into a fictional story about why moats matter. Now, let's just say in some alternate universe that there's an island that exists, and this island has never had apples before, ever. But I show up with apples and I grow them in my yard. I'm the only one that grows them in my yard, and I offer these apples. Stoffel's best, and they're delicious. People love them. I can't sell them fast enough, and I keep raising the prices, and people buy them. And I get profits immediately, and I celebrate because, hey, my business is doing great. Well, of course, if you know anything about apples, you know that, well, someone who eats an apple can take it and take the seeds out and plant it in their yard. And before long, I've got competition from my friend Ken Taylor or Brian Froley or Brian Withers. And that competition, when they come in and they offer apples and maybe they offer them for slightly cheaper than mine, then that gives me a headache because this profit business that I was really counting on to have a great life on this island, well, all of a sudden, it's not looking so hot. This is where moats come in because moats are the things that kick that competition to the curb and allow any business to keep that profitability. Of course, capitalism is designed so that competition benefits the consumer. It's only the companies that have a moat, a sustainable competitive advantage, that are able to keep the competition at bay and compound those profits over time. So what do moats look like? Well, these are the 5 moats that this video is about, the 5 real moats. It is network effects, switching costs, low-cost production, intangible assets, and counterpositioning. Let's dive into each one of these, starting with network effects. So what does network effects mean? Well, it's any time that new users create some type of value for existing users. Now, the easiest example of this is the telephone. If there was only 1 or 2 people in the entire world that had a telephone or a smartphone or whatever, then that would have almost no value. You could only call that one person. But every time someone gets a telephone and starts using it to communicate, all of a sudden that network becomes more valuable for everyone else. And you can see this in a lot of places, especially social media companies, but others as well, where data plays a big role, like Google/Alphabet. There's lots of ways that network effects can take shape. And that is something you can dive into more later. But for now, know that network effects is number 1. Second are switching costs. So what do we mean by switching costs? That is any time where once you become a consumer, it becomes painful to switch away. Now, by painful, that can come in many different forms. It could be painful because it takes a lot of time to switch. It could be painful because it takes a lot of money to switch. It could be painful because you have to train on something new. It could be painful because it's just annoying to do, or it could disrupt your business. Some simple examples of this from the real world. For my own personal life, I bank at an institution that I don't like that much. I think that they've done some things. It's a national bank, and I would like to get away from them. At the same time, it takes time to do that. It's a pain in the butt. And I worry about all the different accounts I have attached to my bank account with this one provider. If I switch, then all of a sudden I'm worried that I might miss some type of payment because everything is connected. And so I don't. Or say Intuitive Surgical. Doctors have trained their entire lives using the Da Vinci surgical robot. To switch away would be huge sunk costs for their training. So that is switching costs. Now, the third moat that we're going to talk about is low cost production. Here's the important thing to know about low cost production. That is where a company can produce the same or a better product or service at a lower internal cost than rivals. Now, scale efficiencies are the biggest way that we see this. That's why Walmart and Costco can demand the absolute lowest prices from their merchants, from their providers, and then pass those savings on to consumers. But it takes other forms as well. For instance, Amazon. their e-commerce business, they can deliver a package from the fulfillment center to your doorstep at a lower internal cost in just 12 to 24 hours than anyone else can provide because of their network of fulfillment centers. So it can take a lot of different shapes. The fourth one we want to talk about is intangible assets. And there's three very broad flavors that this comes in. An intangible asset is a competitive advantage that you can't see, but it's still there. Flavor number one is brand value. And brand value doesn't mean familiarity with a brand. Just because I know Delta doesn't mean that Delta Airlines has brand value. I have to be willing to pay more for Delta because of that, which isn't the case with Delta, but it might be for certain luxury brands. It could come from intellectual property and patents. And you see this most commonly in the pharmaceutical or biopharma industries. And third is government licenses. This is especially the case when it comes to utility companies or ratings agencies. So brand, intellectual property and patents, and government licenses. Now, the last moat that we're talking about is counterpositioning. So what is counterpositioning? That is where the competition would have to give up sales to adopt your business model. Best example of this is Netflix back when it was red envelopes and Blockbuster. Most people don't know this, but Blockbuster made most of their money off of late fees. Well, Netflix's business model eliminated late fees. In fact, because you couldn't get your next DVD sent to you until you sent in the one that you have, it disincentivized holding on to your DVD for very long. And Blockbuster would have had to give up its main profit machine in order to match that business model. And so that is why it's a great example of counterpositioning. So whenever you have a stock to invest in, you have to ask yourself, are any of these present? And you should be able to explain, as if you were explaining to a kindergartner, which one of these 5 real moats are we talking about? Now, the big question then becomes, what happens when a moat disappears or there is never any moat to begin with? Well, I'm going to explain that in just a minute. But first, I want to say I have been collecting my own investing results since December of 2014. And you can see my results in the green here compared to the S&P 500 in the red and the NASDAQ composite in the yellow. And you can see vast outperformance. How? Because I have focused a ton of my energy on moats. But it's not just moats. It's actually something that I call the Adapt Investing Framework. And if you'd like a free ebook to learn more about the Adapt Investing Framework, how to build a world-class portfolio, simply click the top link in the show notes below and you'll get that free ebook to understand more. Now, with that said, let's get back to what happens when a moat disappears. As we said, any company that experiences a lot of success right off the bat is going to have profits, but it's also going to attract attention. And that attention can lead to competition. And if a company doesn't have a moat, one of two things happens. The first thing that could happen is that I might sell, let's use the apples example, fewer apples, but I'll maintain my really high price. Or the other thing that can happen is that I sell the same amount of apples, but I have to lower my price to match what all those other people are selling the apples for. Let's give a real world example of this. A company that I invested in, Whole Foods Market, which is now owned by Amazon. So here are the dynamics at play. This shows 2009 to 2013. Now, one of the things that was actually a secret advantage to Whole Foods is that when the Great Recession hit, all the other grocers abandoned natural and organic goods because they were too expensive, which meant that once the recovery set in, Whole Foods was really the only player that was significantly focused on natural and organic goods. And so it won an outsized portion of the business for natural and organic goods. And so it should be no surprise that its stock returned 500% from 2009 to 2013. But it was around 2013 when all of a sudden Costco and Kroger and Sprouts Farmers Market said, hey, I think that we should start offering some natural and organic goods because they saw the profits that Whole Food was raking in with natural and organic goods. If you looked at Whole Foods at that point in time, there weren't network effects. Me going to the store didn't make for a better experience for someone else in my city. There weren't low-cost production. It wasn't like Whole Foods had some special agreement with natural and organic orange producers that Kroger's or Costco or someone else couldn't bargain for because they had a huge footprint as well. There was no counterpositioning because there's nothing stopping Costco or Kroger's or what have you from offering natural and organic goods. And there really weren't switching costs because for me, if I all of a sudden realize that I can go to Kroger and get this same orange or the same type of orange or the same certified orange for the less cost, well, then I'm probably going to go there. And so the only question becomes, is the brand value that valuable that it's going to be able to withstand that onslaught? And we can just look at this and see that no, that was not the case. Once these players entered and Walmart entered with their own private label brand as well, the stock fell 54%. So while this is very high level, it introduces what I think is an absolutely crucial mindset that you need to have when you go into investing if you're a long-term investor. And that is that capitalism is designed so that if any company has outsized profits, competition will push prices down for consumers, which is a great thing for consumers, but not so great for investors and companies in this capitalistic market. The only way that they can benefit is if a company has a moat. So if you have a company you're looking to invest in, make sure that you ask yourself, are there one of these network effects, switching costs, low cost production, some intangible assets, or counter positioning? Do that, and you'll save yourself a whole bunch of time and money over the long run. Again, if you'd like a copy of my Adapt Investing Framework, don't forget to click that top link in the show notes below. And if you'd like to continue investing better, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time. Until then, Brian, out.